Morning, this is Louie Diaz, the co-news director here at KHTS Radio. I have the privilege to sit down with Mike Kuhlman, the superintendent of the Hart District. Thank you for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Louie. Appreciate it.
So you oversee the high schools and the junior high schools of Santa Clarita. If you just want to tell me a little bit about how many high schools you oversee, how many junior high schools you oversee, and what the job of a superintendent is.
Well, we have about 16 schools in the Hart District, and we have seven high schools, 6 junior high schools, and then we have some other schools like Bowman and Academy of the Canyons, Learning Post Academy. So it's a big district with approximately 22,000 students that we serve, 7 through 12. And the job of the superintendent is really all-encompassing. It's responsibility. There's many different aspects of providing instruction and training for those 22,000 students, and so it'd be hard to sort of encompass in that one role.
Yeah.
I can share with you though that I work with some tremendous people that have been doing some amazing work during a very challenging time this past year.
Yeah, 22,000 students. That's a lot.
It is.
That's a good chunk.
Yes.
So just question the newest high school, Castaic. Just out of curiosity, why does this Castaic school district not get the high school? If they have their own school district and a high school comes to their area, why does that go to the Hart District, not Castaic?
Well, the Hart District is the district that is equipped to actually to teach kids grades 7 through 12. The Castaic, actually, they have one junior high school, and it has to do a little bit with how these different communities kind of were born and grew together. But the Hart District is the one with the experience that is equipped to actually teach the 9 through 12, and so that was part of the reasoning why we would be offering the instruction as a high school.
Okay. So off the air, Mike, you were telling me that you came on to the role of superintendent on March 1st, 2020.
That's right.
Previous to that, we had the very tragic event of Saugus High School, so you've had to tackle a lot. How did you manage to keep everything together? You come in as the new superintendent. You know how high schools are run. You know how schools are run. Being being a teacher for the last 24 years or being on the staff.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to pull everything together when the government said, "All right, all schools need to close. All schools are going to in-person learning"? How did you manage to pull that all together as a brand new superintendent?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it comes with working with outstanding people. The Hart District has outstanding people in leadership, outstanding teachers, and it helped that I have been a member of the district for about 24 years, and so I've built relationships. I know who we're working with, and we were able to respond relatively quickly. In fact, we were proud of the fact that I think within 3 working days, we had our online instruction up and running. Now, that was an emergency online instruction. We had to kind of, a little different than what we've been doing this fall. But that comes from working with good people and having a good plan in place and being able to move quickly. A lot of preparation beforehand. We kind of read the tea leaves, saw the direction things were going, and tried to put pieces in place to enable us to move quickly.
Yeah, that's incredible. 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure those 3 nights you didn't sleep much.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was only a year ago. It feels like 10 years ago. But yes, the entire district, from top to bottom, everybody was working as hard as they possibly can to make that work. And I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish given the challenges that were put before us.
Yeah. How do you feel the city and the county work together? There was a lot of uncertainty of when things could reopen, how schools were going to be able to return to somewhat of in-person learning. How do you feel the county did communicating with you guys in the city?
Well, first of all, we have an outstanding relationship with the city. I have to imagine it's unique and uniquely positive. Again, we've built relationships over time. I can text or call some of the key leadership at the city, and we work together to resolve problems. I'm thinking of, for example, when we dealt with the Saugus tragedy, how quickly we were able to pull together the memorial at Central Park, with over 10,000 people. So the city is wonderful. I can't say enough about our positive relationship. And the county is, when you refer to the county, that's a big thing. There's a lot of different things you can talk about. You can talk about LA County Office of Education. which I can share with you have only been outstandingly, exceptionally helpful to us in this process. They gather together, they've put together a weekly phone call with all 80 superintendents of
Wow.
the Los Angeles County area. And they have helped us answer questions in this rapidly changing environment where we get new news on every day, every hour, sometimes minute by minute. They've helped put that together. And the other aspect of the county is working with LA County Department of Public Health. And I like to say at the beginning that those folks have been handed an unbelievable challenge. And so I'm wary about just being too critical of folks who have dealt with a lot of unknowns, a lot of scary issues, a crisis involving, thousands of people getting sick and deaths in LA County. I will say that it has been challenging to lead the district and to have to disseminate information, to come up with plans when things are changing so quickly and when sometimes we don't have the luxury of having information in a timely fashion. I feel bad about the fact that we have sometimes had to communicate things to parents when we only learned about them maybe 15 minutes prior, or that in some instances families learn about things on the radio or through a news conference even before we do. That's not normally how things happen, but I think that's the world of COVID. So
how have the parents been handling it all? Are they understanding with you guys, or is it been a mixed bag of nuts with that?
Parents are wonderful. They have been incredibly gracious and understanding given everything that's been thrown at them. I've worked with a number of parents that have been, I think, understandably impatient with us to return to in-person learning. And I don't harbor any negative thoughts about that because I understand that all of us really want to get back to 5 days of in-person instruction as soon as possible. So, I have a group of folks that I talk with on a regular basis. They share their concerns. They ask very insightful questions, and I appreciate the fact to have that kind of conversation. But there's folks that are understanding. There's folks that would have hoped that we could have moved a little bit faster. I'll share with you as well that in the same way that we were among the first to actually start the online instruction, if you look in the context of LA County, all the school districts in LA County that have high schools in them, not just elementary schools, we were again among the first to return to in-person instruction at the high school level. And so, I put that out there as another point of pride that even though some would wish we could have moved sooner, I think given the environment that we work in, I'm proud of how fast that we've been able to make this happen safely.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Looking back, in hindsight, how do you feel the students did with the virtual learning? Because a lot of virtual learning is done in colleges, not so much in high school. Did they? What were some of the benefits, if there were any, for the students learning virtually and not being on campus? And what were some of the hardships too?
Well, we've actually taken an approach that as we hopefully are seeing the end of this pandemic crisis, if we see the light at the end of the tunnel, what we've said is, our goal is to capture the good and celebrate the successes, because we think that there are some good things that have come that we've learned through this process that we want to make sure that this just wasn't a blip that we kind of turn our backs on and move forward and do things the way we just used to do them. But there are, I think there was an accelerated requirement for teachers to embrace new technologies. And I think it opened the door to some new instructional strategies that will find their way into what we're doing post-pandemic. Mm-hmm. A simple example that I think probably anybody who's working have found is that we realized that there were a lot of meetings that we would conduct where we'd call people together that would pull people away from campuses and the important work that's happening there. We don't have to do that if we actually can use Zoom for that function.
Yeah.
And we know that for some families, they have determined that online instruction and independent study works for their child. So we're actually working to set up a scenario where we are going to expand what we call our Learning Post Academy to accommodate moving forward those families that want to continue in a independent study environment. Because for some families, they thought this was a change that was unexpected, and they found that it was working for their child.
So once COVID is over, if that is a thing,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think virtual learning is always going to be an option, or will it eventually fade back to there's no online learning, everyone's in the classroom, and that's it?
I don't think we can ever go back entirely. I will say in the Hart District that and this is me reading the tea leaves, that we have to wait and see kind of what happens in the next couple months, but I envision a future where we would have an option of in-person instruction like we've had in the past, and we would open the door to more students participating in our, what we used to call Hart at Home, but our Learning Post Academy, where it would be perhaps a blended format, a little bit independent study, maybe some online instruction. I don't think that's ever entirely going away because I think there are parts of it that have been beneficial.
Yeah. And if you're just joining us, this is Louie Diaz, the co-news director here at KHTS Radio. I'm sitting down talking with the Superintendent, Mike Kuhlman of the Hart School District. So, Mike, another question for you here is, how does it feel to have the students back on campus and seeing sports returning and all that?
I'm telling you, it is absolute joy, and I'm not saying that for effect. Everybody who is in education is in it because we love kids, we love working with kids, it's the human connection that takes place, and so across the board, there was fear and concern, given that we're in the midst of a pandemic, about what this change would involve. And I think that people have become more comfortable recognizing that we have safety supports in place. But in every instance, seeing the kids back, you see smiles on teachers' faces, you see smiles with kids. The athletic piece, I know, is a huge piece for students and families to be doing what kids should be doing at this point, what's healthy for their bodies and their minds. So it's just been absolute pure joy having everyone back. Now, having said that, the blended learning model that we have right now, that our teachers are heroically attempting to teach students in class and online at the same time, I think that they are managing well, but this is not a long-term solution.
Right.
It is a challenge, and so I always want to note that as I'm singing the praises of having kids back. So,
do you feel the senior high school students are happier to be back on campus more so than the junior high students, or vice versa, or is it a pretty even?
I don't know if I could read who is most excited about being back. I will tell you that our numbers choosing to come back are higher at the junior high than at the secondary level. Across the board, we have more students choosing to be in classes. But again, at the high school, it sort of depends upon the class, meaning that there are some AP classes that are relatively full, and there are other classes that have fewer students participating. I don't think that's an indication of students wanting to be back with one another. I think there's a lot of factors at play, but that's the reality, that we have more students that are currently participating at the junior high than the high school level.
Interesting. Looking back when I was in high school, senioritis was a reality for me. There's no hiding that. With the COVID, having kids be at home and not having a school to go to every day and seeing their friends every day like they did growing up with, do you feel that returning to school and being away from it for so long is making senioritis worse for some of these seniors this year? And if so, what is your advice to the seniors who are getting ready to graduate amid this interesting school time?
What a great question about advice. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that, these seniors have been put through a lot, and they have had many things taken from them that really should have been part of their experience. That's why we're working so hard to hopefully create some senior activities and an in-person graduation. So they've been through a lot. I do think that being away from a school and the lack of human interaction is not healthy for kids. That seems like such an obvious statement, but I think kids may have, in some cases, it has become more comfortable to not have to get up and be part of a routine and come to school. But those are the kinds of things those are the kind of human interactions that I think are part of healthy human development. So I think that has been that hasn't been a healthy part of this pandemic, where we've had to have people isolated at home. But I guess if I were to give any advice, I'm careful about giving advice because we're all going through this together. But
right.
I shared something that I went through. My grandfather went to school in L.A. way back in the 30s, and in the midst of the Depression. I was looking through his yearbook. Someone had passed that down to me, and there was a statement in there right in the midst of the Depression, and it said, if I can recall it, it said, "The elevator to success is broken. Take the stairs." And I thought, here was a group of people in the midst of the Depression. There wasn't a lot of jobs available. The prospects for the future was unknown. And the message to that generation was, you're going to have to find a different way. And so that would be my encouragement. That generation did. In fact, we look back at that generation, I think, with a lot of admiration. And I feel the same way about these kiddos. They've been thrown a lot. And I don't want to minimize what's been taken away from them, but I'm a little bit more optimistic that these kids are more resilient than people give them credit for. And I think that the challenges that they've gone through will have deepened their character in ways that others maybe haven't had, because they haven't had to go through and come up with alternative ways to be successful. So I'm hopeful for this generation moving forward. And I guess my encouragement would be, when the time comes, come back to school. Come be part of what we're doing in the Hart District. Those of you going off to college, this is your next stage. Embrace it. I'm hopeful for the future.
I like that. That's a great quote. Say that one more time.
It says, "The elevator to success is broken, so take the stairs."
That is a great quote. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned graduations. Where does that all stand right now?
So I think we're at a really good place with that. We have such a great relationship with COC, and they are always willing to work with us about allowing us to use their facilities. They're stuck right now because the county is not allowing them to rent out their facilities to outside groups. The Hart District is an outside group. We think that will change. I think that's a vestige of when we were in a different place with the pandemic. But we are planning with that in mind, and the idea would be that they are full graduations where we would be, I've seen some kind of layouts of what this would look like, where it's going to be really neat. We will have the entire field used for students spaced out 6 feet apart. Mm-hmm. And looks like the stage will be in the center of the football field. It'll be more kind of like a rock concert orientation.
There you go.
We're anticipating that we would be able to have a certain number of spectators, maybe 2 per family, in order to meet the criteria. And we're working with COC and the county to have that one last piece hopefully resolved so we can officially get word out to parents. But everyone should know that we're moving full speed ahead with the intention of an in-person graduation ceremony, a real one. So,
if COC doesn't work out, are there plans brewing on the back burner to do it at one of the high school football fields or on the campus, the quad area?
Yeah, that's exactly. Our alternative would be to use some of our existing stadiums, which we can do. It just, the capacity is a little bit lower, so our preference is to use. The COC stadium is ideally suited. It's separate from everything. In terms of our keeping folks safe and socially distanced, it's ideal. Parking is obviously a lot better, but we would use our existing facilities if we needed to.
That's awesome. And one last question for you, Mike. Lately, there's been a lot of talk about the change of the mascot for Hart High School. What can you tell us about that? Where does that stand? What's for the future of the school there?
Yeah. Well, what I can tell you is that on the 26th of this month, we're going to actually be hosting a community forum. There's been a lot of calls for folks to say that they want to make sure that their voices are heard in this process. And so we've been tried through multiple different avenues to provide opportunities for key stakeholders to share their input. We had Mr. Rudy Ortega, who is from the leadership of the Tatavian Band of Mission Indians, come and share at one of our board meetings. We had one of our students who brought the concern really kind of to our attention again, and she shared at a recent meeting. We had a board study session, and in this upcoming meeting, we'll be inviting community members to share their thoughts and opinions on this. And I guess one of the things I'll share with this is I really appreciate our board's approach to this. People feel very strongly on all sides of this particular issue, and the effort has been to listen with an open mind, to really provide people the opportunity to share their perspectives, to be mindful of, we have a high school that has 50 years of tradition, but also mindful that we're talking about a mascot that actually has implications for real people and real history. And I guess the part that was most encouraging to me was Mr. Rudy Ortega, who is the leadership of the Tatavian Band of Mission Indians. We've built a relationship with him, and my compassion and understanding has grown for indigenous peoples, especially here in Santa Clarita, the history, just by building that relationship. And it reinforced for me that when we have issues that are highly politicized, sometimes people fall into different camps and they don't listen to one another. And the opportunity for real change comes with humans talking to other humans, people getting to know one another and understanding their lived experience. And Rudy's encouragement to us was work with the community, provide time for people to talk with one another, and in his experience in a nearby community, the community reached consensus about a course of action. That doesn't mean unanimity, but it means that there was a sort of agreed upon course of action. And that comes from taking the time to listen to people, provide chance for people to talk, to have greater understanding about the issues. And so I'm confident that that's going to happen. I can't tell you whether there will be a change or who would authorize that change. That's really kind of in the board's domain. But we're moving in that direction, and I'm again appreciative that the board has taken this approach. No unilateral immediate decisions on things, to make sure that we are listening to everyone, so that when we do make a change, hopefully it will be through the consensus agreement of the community.
Yeah. Are there any mascot ideas floating around right now that may become the new mascot for Hart that you're aware of, or is it too early to say what it might be?
It's too early to change whether there would be a change, but there's a lot of, folks have been super creative. In fact, one of the students, former students who shared her concerns about the existing mascot, presented a number of different alternatives. There are a nod to some of the history here. There was the buffaloes, because we have the buffaloes out here by the William S. Hart mansion, among others. But again, that's kind of getting ahead of things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks have different ideas, and I welcome the creativity.
That's great. I like that. The Hart Buffaloes. That's very interesting. I like that, though.
Yeah.
For you guys out there, for Santa Clarita residents wanting to participate in this forum that Hart is hosting, there is a link on hometownstation.com. You can go there and submit a request to be part of that forum, which is again happening next Monday. And again, this has been Louie Diaz sitting here in the KHTS studio with the William S. Union High School District Superintendent Mike Kuhlman. Mike, thanks again for coming in and talking to us and giving a little feedback on the last year in the Hart District.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.